everybody. Welcome back to another great episode of the Silver Lyming. I am your host, Anne Desjardins, and I'm happy to be here in a healthy and whole state to be able to deliver these stories to you, which hopefully will help either inspire you or educate you more about tick-borne illnesses and the dangers that ticks do present to us in our environment. Again, I think this is a statistic people keep putting back to me that they're very surprised to hear, but 400 to 600,000 people a year are infected in the United States alone. Keep in mind, this is not just something that is contained in the United States. This is a worldwide epidemic that is presenting itself and causing a lot more problems for people than I think we're necessarily aware of. And if you are one of the people who catches it early on, you happen to get a bullseye rash and you get treatment right away, typically 70% of those people are going to go on with their life and never have a second thought about Lyme disease. But if you're in one of those, that other 30%, or someone who has not gotten that traditional bullseye rash that only 35% of people do get, and you don't know you've been infected, it can be a really slow decline into a very dark pit of despair and sickness, truly. And it can take a lot to regain and recuperate from that experience. And so, obviously, your best bet is to be mindful, to be educated, to be aware about ticks and their environment and the ways that they come into contact with us. We are a byproduct of really what they're looking to feed upon. It's the human, it's just anything alive that they're really going to be interested in to make a meal off of. Traditionally, they're going to go more for the animals, which I feel sorry for them, but that is more of their intended target. And then sometimes people get caught in the middle, and unfortunately, we suffer a great deal. The testing available for humans is deplorable. It's maybe 65% accurate at best. There is a litany of reasons why it is in this space, and I could really spend an hour probably talking to you about that. But I just want you to keep in mind that the standard two-tier testing available that your traditional doctor is going to give to you is a good starting point, but it is not the end-all be-all. And if you're still feeling funny and you have unanswered medical symptoms going on in your body, this is something to definitely continue exploring and maybe getting yourself to a Lyme specialist, an ILADS trained physician. ILADS is International Lyme and Associated Disease Society. Somebody, again, who's a specialist. You've got cancer, you're going to go to a cancer specialist. You've got a bone break, you're going to go to an orthopedic surgeon or someone who can help you specifically with that. Same thing needs to happen with Lyme and tick-borne illness. And we do not necessarily have a whole lot of options that are really specialized in this, but it is important to get yourself to someone like that, or knowing the specialized testing that is available. There are quite a few different places that you could go for more specialized testing. Igenex.com is one that I'm familiar with, IGENEX.com, and they have a pretty good spectrum that you can choose from in terms of getting yourself tested for Lyme and tick-borne illness, again, on a more sensitive level. But it is possible to heal. And for those that get sucked into the more chronic state of this, I wanted to start this podcast again to share stories of others who have healed themselves, who have found their way out of it, and potentially give those listening different ideas and options for themselves to consider if they're struggling to figure out how to fix themselves. My guest today is Tanya Hoebel, and I'm very happy to have her here with me. I've crossed paths with her. One of our friends actually connected us. One of my former guests, Ryan, had put us together with each other, and I'm just excited. She and I have similar stories, and I think hearing her perspective through what she has endured will be very helpful. And again, where she has gone now in current state as a result of getting Lyme and tick-borne illness, I think will be useful, because it's like many of my other guests, we find different things that have helped us heal, and we take them much more to heart because we know that the importance of what that meant to us did for us. I became an Ayurvedic practitioner and quite a few other holistic medicine trainings to help people further, because that was something that really helped me a lot. And Tanya also has her own experience with some products and offerings that really helped change her and help her to get back to a state where she says no more symptoms at all, which is just absolutely beautiful to hear. So thank you, Tanya, for spending your time here with me today to, again, offer your story for others to listen to and making yourself vulnerable, but also then to be a resource for those in the Lyme community. I know you also have a podcast, and you're doing your best as well to educate people about really the importance of understanding this disease and how to do better for themselves to get well. So thank you again for being here. If you don't mind, could you please share with us a little bit more about the specifics of how you exactly did wind up in this space with Lyme and tick-borne illness?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Anne. And everything you said is just fantastic and spot on, right? We learn so much through our journeys that we either learned early on or we learned a little bit later.
Mm.
But nonetheless, we learned. And so I love to come across people like yourself and myself that just want to give back these tips that we learned, right? Because sometimes it could make our healing path much quicker if we just knew some of the simple things that we didn't know. So we don't know what we don't know. So
That's
I
right.
truly appreciate you inviting me on to share my journey. And, if just any part of it resonates with anyone and moves the needle for anyone, right? Like that's all it's about. We just want to give back and share our experiences. And Lyme and tick-borne disease, there's no one shoe fits all, right? Like there's not one treatment protocol that works for everyone. And so it's a great way to just hear the different opportunities and things that are out there that can help you heal. So
That's
thank you for
right.
having me.
Yes, my
So let's
pleasure.
see, where do I start? So, I was in my 30s and life was amazing. I was at the top of my career. I was probably a little bit of a lot of a workaholic, right? But I was very healthy and active. I was a gym rat. I ate what I thought was pretty well. And just life was amazing, like what we wish for everyone. And in 2004, I had recently got divorced, probably about a year prior. So I bought a new home in Northern California, and I was outside re-landscaping the front yard. And I had been doing it all weekend long. It was a Sunday night. I came in, I took a shower, and I went to bed. And all night long, I was scratching my ankle. And so when I woke up Monday morning, I looked at my ankle and I had a bullseye rash.
Mm.
Thought, oh my gosh, there's a spider in my bed. And so I threw all my covers off my bed. I couldn't find anything. And I thought, well, gosh, I've never seen a bite like this before. Whatever, right? So take a shower and go about my day. And next thing I know is the bite is down on my ankle. I almost couldn't walk on my foot. I was
Mm.
like, well, this is really weird. It's just like a bite. It didn't itch like a mosquito bite. And unfortunately, I had no idea what a bullseye rash was. So that was my downfall, right? So I ended up calling my just regular practitioner of almost 20 years, told him I had this bullseye rash and didn't know what it meant, but my ankle hurts. He says, come in right away. So I
Mm.
did. And he asked me a lot of really random questions at the time. Do you have a fever? Do you feel okay? Do you feel like you have the flu? And I thought, I have a bite on my ankle. Like, this is really weird. So I'm like, no, I'm fine. And he goes, well, do you want me to give you a pain shot? I'm like, yes, please sign me up. Right. It just hurt. I needed to go about my day. And so he did that. And he made it very clear to me that if in the next couple of weeks, if anything happens weird, you feel sick, you get the flu, you have a fever, call me right away. And I thought, okay, whatever, bye. And so I went about my life. And 4 years later, I started getting sick.
Mm.
And so I think it was, just that whole running down your body, emotional trauma, physical trauma, just being a workaholic. And so my first symptoms started with my right elbow. I had a sliding glass door off my dining room, and I'd always, open it in and out for my cat and all of that stuff. And I was like, gosh, it's really getting hard to open this door. And so this went on for a few months, and so much so that it was bothering me at the gym. So I called the doctor, I did the MRI, I did, all kind of the normal tests, and they're like, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, okay, that's weird. And then the other elbow started. And I thought, this is really weird. And is this what happens when you're in your mid 30s? You just get all these aches and pains, is what I'm telling myself, because the doctors, the MRI, everything said there's nothing wrong with you. My blood work all appeared to be fine. And so I just kind of tried to go about my days. And I had a home business, I had a legal business, and I also had a corporate job. And so I'm just working. Next thing you know, maybe 6 months goes by, and I'm finding myself, I'm no longer doing any type of weights at the gym, only cardio,
Oh,
because different parts of my body are hurting now. And so more time goes on, and I catch myself coming home after work and literally falling asleep on the couch, waking up, grabbing a bite of something, and going to bed. And so now I'm not even at the gym doing cardio for probably about 6 months. And one day I woke up and I thought, my whole body feels like I just did a boot camp at the gym. And I thought, Tanya, you haven't been to the gym in months. Something is wrong with me, right?
yeah.
So that kind of started my rabbit hole of going to different doctors and specialists and running blood tests. And I traveled and I did this for, well, I mean, I didn't keep track of how many doctors or specialists or tests that I did. I wished I would have, right? And so I was just trying to find some answers. And so this went on for 7 years. So during the 7 years, some of the things I dealt with was I worked at the same courthouse for 17 years. It was a one town over from where I lived. I would drive right past it and end up in another town and not know where I was or not where I was going. And I would call my mom crying. And it's kind of funny because she always would ask me, "What are you wearing?" And depending on what I was wearing, could tell her and me where I was going. So if I was kind of more dressed up, I was going to court today.
Oh,
Or if I was dressed down, I was going to the office today. I mean, we kind of figured out these little tips that could help us figure out
what
how to
you were
get me through
doing.
the day and
Yeah.
navigate, through just a daily living. And then, I would go to the grocery store after work, and I'd wake up in the morning to, have orange juice. And like, I'm pretty sure I bought orange juice last night. Well, I found my groceries in the car the next day. So
Yeah.
that got kind of expensive, right?
Yeah.
And all along, like just so much pain. One day my arms would hurt just to hold the phone up to my ear was next to impossible. But then the next day my arm was fine. And so when these doctors are telling me you're overworked, you're stressed, you need to go see a therapist, I'm thinking, maybe that's all that's wrong with me. Like how embarrassing, Here I am telling people I'm sick, something's going on, and really it's all in my head. And that was kind of what they had me convinced of until, I'm very much of a OCD person, a kind of a clean freak. And when I started noticing, and my friends would start noticing that my house wasn't as perfect, right, as it normally is, or maybe my garbage can should have been taken out yesterday and it wasn't, they would kind of start questioning and asking me questions. And that was when we really figured out something is wrong with me, right? Because I wouldn't allow these things that normally would drive me bonkers, right? If something was out of place to happen. And so I really just thought, something's going on. I thought I'm just going to keep pursuing this and seeing more doctors. And what do you do? What
Yeah.
do you do? And so it was about 6.5 years in, and I was in court one day, and the judge asked my name and who I represented, and I didn't know my name.
Oh dear.
And I had never been so embarrassed and humiliated ever, right? And the judge knew me. He's known me for years, but I went home that night and I just cried. And at the time I was in Northern California, I called my mom in Oregon. I called my dad in another part of California. And I said, okay, you guys, this is it. Like I'm done. I'm packing it in. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to close my business. I'm going to give away my home. Like I have to move back to my hometown to be closer to most of my family and then like your lifelong friends, right? That you
Yep.
truly trust. And that's what I did. And I was so thankful because I fully had their support because they really knew something was wrong with me, even though it made zero sense,
Yeah.
They believed me. And I know a lot of listeners out there right now probably don't have that support, and it's heartbreaking. What I can tell you is though, even though I had that amazing support, I was still very, very lonely. I felt very isolated. So that is a normal thing that we go through during this journey. So super glad I made that decision. Like I said, it took me about 6.5 years to finally just call it quits. I'm not a quitter. I didn't want to give up, but I knew that I was going to die
Yeah.
if I didn't figure out what was wrong with me. And so I packed up, moved back to my hometown. Thank goodness I did, because I actually ended up bedridden with a caregiver. And like I said, I didn't know my name.
Wow.
So that was,
Wow.
it was a lot, right?
Yeah. And that's like, you're touching on so many things that I think about is like the whole head game of doctors saying that there's nothing wrong with you except for stress, but inside deep down, systemically there's a huge problem and that you're dying. Like that's a really scary place to be. And it is embarrassing. Like, what do you say to people when doctors keep telling you that there's nothing wrong with you? I turned to alcohol. I started to drink heavily for 3 years because I was very isolated, felt very alone, had no energy, couldn't remember people's names I knew my whole life and had couldn't talk. Like it's embarrassing when you're used to being high function and then you go to this place where you're basically the shell of a human and you're left to just figure this out on your own. I often think about like GPS was one of my best friends because I could type in where I was going and then I would actually arrive to where I was headed, right? Like there were many times I would get in the car and like, what am I doing? Where am I going? This is so I'm glad for you that you had support, but many people unfortunately don't necessarily have that support and it it can be very overwhelming from a lonely and darkness perspective. And so I'm very thankful for you to have had a soft place to land in a sense. Like I didn't get to the point of being bedridden. I was to the point where I would like sit on the couch and I couldn't go anywhere and I couldn't manifest any energy to go out with a friend or meet anybody. And I felt like a really bad person. Like I felt like a bad human, a bad friend, a bad family member because I couldn't participate. I couldn't will myself through that. And that's always a big thing I believe in is like, we can get through anything, right? Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Let's go. These are the conversations that I would have with myself in the mirror every day. It's like, no, don't give into this feeling. Like, don't let yourself go there. You're stronger than this. Let's go. But no matter how much I tried to talk myself through it, the symptoms prevailed. And it was very challenging to just function as a normal human. So, um, I just want listeners to understand you're not alone, even if it feels like you're incredibly alone. And like, I'm thinking about, did the doctor not mention to you that he was concerned for you to have Lyme disease back in Northern California? He just was like, if you start to feel funky, call me. Because maybe that could have helped you a lot too. It's like if he had said that this would be an option, maybe down the road, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
What happened with
Yeah.
that there?
Yeah, so gosh, a lot of things I want to touch on what you just said. So with that, yes, no, never mentioned a word,
Mm.
right? So, and obviously he knew
Yes.
it was a bullseye
Yes.
rash. He asked
Yes.
me all those random questions that
Yes.
I thought were really weird at the time. But had he just said, okay, this is a tick bite,
Yes.
right? You're
Yes.
probably going to be okay. But that's the importance of letting me know if you feel off, in
Yes.
the next couple of weeks. Then maybe 4 or 5 years into this, I could have been racking my brain about what could be wrong because I went back 10 years from the day that I got sick to I collected all my medical records. It cost a fortune. They charge you for those pages, or did back then. Um, and I created about 5 like huge binders of just all of my records, and I would just read through them to try to piece something together because something is wrong with me. There's got to be something. And I did find my report on there that got bit by a spider or something. Again, but it didn't register at the time.
Sure. Sure.
And so yeah, it's disheartening, and there's for the listeners out there, if you haven't watched the documentary Under Our Skin, it's fantastic. It really can kind of shed some light on, not that it makes sense, but maybe give us a clear understanding of why some doctors don't want to treat, why some doctors are losing their licenses because they're treating, Lyme isn't real, all that stuff. So it's just, so many things that we learn along that during our journey. And so the other thing I wanted to touch on that you had mentioned, what did you turn to? You turned to alcohol, right? So I am a very, very much of an extrovert. I am a social butterfly. Nobody is a stranger. It's almost kind of overboard, right? Like I can be a lot. I get that. Um, but I'm always happy and always positive. And there was a point prior to getting my diagnosis that I contemplated suicide. And, you know, for many years, I didn't even tell my parents about it because I was embarrassed that I was so weak. I was ashamed. It wasn't me. I've had friends that actually committed suicide, and my thought was always, wow, how chicken. That was the easy way out. What could be so bad that you would want to end it? And I finally understood. And what I can say now is that it was not chicken. That wasn't the easy way out.
No.
Making a plan to take your life is one of the hardest things ever to do, right? Like I don't want to cry. Um, and the crazy thing is that my brother passed away when he was 22 from an illness. And so my parents already lost one child. I still had a younger brother, right? And my thought process during this time was my parents will forgive me. They still have one child. They'll be okay. They understand how sick I am and how much pain I'm in. And that is not okay, right? Like that is the Lyme in my brain. But we don't know this at the time. And
That's right.
so
That's right.
I like to share it because I don't want people to be down on themselves and hard on themselves. This is a hard journey. There is nothing easy about it. It takes courage and strength to make it on the other side. But like you said in the beginning, Anne, it's we assure you you can make it. We did, right? And
Yes.
many of
Yes.
us do.
Yes.
We just don't want you to lose that hope. And so what I did at that time was I found my why. Why do I want to live?
Good job.
Um, and it ended up being my niece and my nephew, who were just, I don't even know how old they were, like 4 and 6 probably, because unfortunately I didn't have children. I wasn't able to have children. And so they were like my kids and they were my why. And what I told myself was they already lost their uncle that they never got to know, even though there's a big picture of them on our walls and we talk about him all the time. I was a huge part in their lives and I didn't want to take that from them again. So it was because of them that truly I'm still here today. And now they're 17 and 19. And I tell them all the time, like, I'm so grateful for them.
Yes.
But find your why, find what's important to you. And I think the biggest part of that dark part of my life was if I'm going to all these doctors and I'm going to all of these specialists and nothing's wrong with me, then how can I get better? Right? How can I get better if there's nothing wrong? And
Yes.
I thought, if I have to live like this, I don't want to live. And that's kind of how that took that turn. So I know a lot of listeners may not have a Lyme diagnosis, right? Maybe they're still trying to get it. And go with your gut, be your own advocate. It's a real thing, and it's not just Lyme. And you mentioned my podcast earlier. It's Lyme and Beyond with Tanya.
Yes.
And it's called that because it's not just Lyme. It's
Yes.
like this umbrella, right? You got the Lyme, the co-infections, mold, parasites, candida, mast cell, like the list goes on and on and on. And so there's so many things that are wrapped up into that. But the easier way is just to say Lyme, right? But just
Sure.
know that we're not discounting any other things that you may be going through. This alpha gal syndrome is kind of a big thing this
Yes.
probably in the last year. And so there's just so much that goes into it, but there really is truly hope and answers for all of us out there.
That's
It's
right.
just a matter of finding it and
That's right.
timing, right?
Yes. Because I often
Yeah.
will picture like almost like a knot, like a big mess of threads all together, right? And it's all blah, and fuzzy and blurry, and it's really hard for people in that space. And like your body's like, oh, and like as you slowly pull out the threads and start to unravel that tight knot that you've got, everything gets smoother and easier, but you can start to see the different components that were involved in making this big ball of a mess. And it is many different things, right? Just overall health in the person's being before they even got sick, and then the co-infections and the different molds and metals and everything else that you've mentioned, right? Like it all
Yeah.
affects us differently, and no two humans are the same. And so each person, another vision I have of it is like we all have our own lock, we all have our own combination, or like we're like a Rubik's cube, and you're like, like trying to figure out exactly the right configuration to allow things to come out for you to be healthy again. And that really can take a lot of introspection as well, because I find for people, it's not just a physical disturbance. A lot of times there's emotional components to it as well. Trauma is a huge trigger for this particular set of sicknesses or illness. And I don't think people really maybe acknowledge that enough, or like even stress itself is a huge catalyst for people having an attack or to suddenly feel their symptoms, and we have to do better at addressing that part of it as well. Like it's not just a physical issue, it's many times much more deep than that in people's bodies. And I don't know if we really do that enough justice. And like to go back, it's like Lyme has one of the highest suicide rates of any disease, and we can understand that. And you had said something that it was the Lyme, not you. And I want people to understand that, right? Like if your brain gets infected with this, just like any other part of your body, when there's an infection in there, it's red, it's angry, it's irritated. Well, what do you think's happening to your brain when that infection crosses in there? And it's making your brain not function the way that it normally does. I had a completely different set of emotions at that time. Like my emotional spectrum was way different than I am now. Very OCD, angry, crying, distrustful, just all the negative spectrum emotions that I can think of were just very heightened in me. But it wasn't me. It was the sickness that was doing that talking when I was thinking about taking my own life. I was there with you, and I understand that tremendously. And yeah, I never really thought of people as a chicken per se, but um I see it much differently because I was there, and it was like that was one of the hardest things that I had to think about was, can I actually do this? Like, how do I do this? Right. I had an ex-boyfriend who gave me a gun for self-protection, and he had no idea what was going on with me because I just stopped talking to people about it when doctors tell you there's nothing wrong. So here he gives me this gun. The minute he told me it was coming, my hands were sweating. I was like, oh God, I can't have that in my house. That's probably going to the end of me. Like that's probably going to be how I go out of this place. And I'm so grateful that I didn't. And if people are listening and you're getting to that point, just know that it can change pretty quickly, actually. Like I feel like you just like go, and then all of a sudden you find your why, or you find something else to just help propel you and start putting you back into the other side of the spectrum. Like you think about a scale, and that's our health, right? And if everything is going into the negative side, yeah, it's gonna like really put us way out of balance. And so we've got to weight that on the other side with good and with things that are going to help us get a buoyancy and achieve a higher elevated state of being. And again, that takes some time to get that ball rolling. But I think once you get the ball rolling and you're able to define that a little bit more clearly for yourself, that's really a big turning point for many people. And I'm glad that you had clearly, I'm very thankful that you had that huge turning point for yourself and defining your why to give yourself reason to continue to push forward. Because I can't say that it's easier to end your life, but um, it very well could be an easier option than to endure being told that there's nothing wrong with you and feeling like a crazy person for the rest of your life too. Like that's really no way to go. And ultimately it probably would have killed you. And I feel the same. Like they were going to find me dead on the sidewalk sometime, and then they would have believed me that legitimately I wasn't just fluffing, that there really was something
Yes.
wrong, and they would find it when they did my autopsy. Maybe I had funny wiring inside. Who knows what I was thinking that would
Right.
ultimately be seen. But for those who are that close to the end of the rope, just hang on. Tanya talks again about her why, and then tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you've done to fix yourself, right? So you got to rock bottom in the sense that you were bed bound and having someone take care of you. You can't even remember your name. What
Yeah.
happened then that allowed you to get better?
Yeah, so I want to touch on a couple things that you said first, and then I'll share, right? There's so much, right?
I
Like
know,
anytime you say
I
something like, oh
know,
my gosh, I want to say this and
I
this, there's just so many
know.
layers to this. So you call it like this knot, right? Like truly this journey is like that, or like peeling an onion. There's
Yes,
so many layers to it. And I can tell you from experience that not just my personal experience, but from all the hundreds of people that I've interviewed on my podcast, the emotional part of it is huge in this healing journey.
yeah,
Um, I believe that we got to peel the layers down, right? And we need to get to the foundation of our body. I actually shared this meme or this phrase I came across the other day. And of course, I probably won't remember what it says. Let me see if I can quickly find it here. Yes, it says, when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the
yes,
flower.
yes.
We're much like that. We have
That's
to
right.
fix our foundation, right? Build up our foundation so that our body is strong enough to handle the killing off process, the detoxing process, because it takes a toll on us. And so that, and then I think the other part is mindset is so huge in it. It is it once I got my diagnosis, my mindset changed. My mindset went, I am going to get well. I am going
Right.
to get well. And I can't tell you how much that changes your whole healing journey. We are our thoughts. We are what we say. And so, but I understand it's hard to get there sometimes, right? So yeah, there's just so many pieces to it. But yeah, so now I'm living in my hometown. I have a caregiver, which again was really hard because I would listen to her unload my dishwasher and bang the dishes and chip my plates. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't have somebody do this, right? So people that are OCD or, type A personalities, like this journey is rough on us, a
That's
little
right.
extra, right?
That's
But
right.
we have to give in. We have to embrace what's happening and accept it. And I was super grateful for the help. And there were times when just some of my friends would come over today and they're like, I just want to give you clean sheets. I want to help you take a bath. And I want you to put on your favorite pajamas. And just having my favorite pajamas and a pair of clean sheets, that was the highlight of my day. It made me so happy. And so if you're bedbound, if you're wherever you are in your journey, I promise you there's something you can be thankful for or grateful for today. Put on your favorite pajamas, right? Listen to your favorite song. There's something. I used to, when I could walk, I'd walk outside and listen to the birds chirp. Never thought I'd want to hear that, right? But
Yes.
there's always something that you can soak in that will get you through that day. I promise you there is.
Yes.
Um, so anyway, so I start researching on my own. My dad would come and pick me up and we'd go to the library together and just I would Google all sorts of symptoms that I had. And I can't tell you the different books I checked out, right? And then pretty soon things started porting towards Lyme. And I thought, what is Lyme? I thought it was something dogs got, which it is,
Yes.
but I didn't know it was a human thing. I had
Okay.
no idea. Again, that is my neglect on my education because I didn't even know what a bullseye rash meant, right? But we don't know what we don't know. And I
That's
know
right.
that this is one of the reasons you too, Anne, do what you do is because if I could just educate one person on what a bullseye rash means, right? Like I
That's
did my
right.
job,
That's right.
even though not many of us get it. I was that lucky one. I just didn't know what it meant. And so my dad would come over. He would pay my bills every month because I didn't know what a checkbook was. Like I look at this foreign piece of paper and I'm like, what are you going to do with it? It was just so bizarre. So anyway, so we discovered that I think I had Lyme. And so I reached out to my pain doctor that I eventually had gone to probably about 3 years in. I was not one to take an aspirin for a headache. I just would suffer with a headache. And I was on fentanyl, morphine, and Dilaudid all at the same time. And I'm not recommending that, right? I also was on anxiety meds. I was on antidepressants. I didn't know any better. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do to get to the next step, right?
Right.
And that was what I had to do. I couldn't function without it. And so I think that that's important that, again, going the holistic route that I ended up going, I have very different thoughts nowadays than I did prior to Lyme. So I don't want to condone or not condone, any of these medications. But just know that it's okay to give in and do what you need to do, right? We don't want you to go through unnecessary suffering. What we want is you to stay here on this earth with us and
Yes.
fight and get
Yes.
well. And so
Yes.
whatever it takes to get you there, do it, right? I did it and I don't do it anymore. And so that was my crutch and it worked.
Yes.
Um, so I called my pain doctor from the other town because she had told me one time, Tanya, I don't diagnose people often. You just come in and I give you your pain meds, but I'm pretty sure you have Lyme disease because
Ah,
I had Lyme. And I said, hmm. And I said, so what does that mean? Well, come to find out, I had been tested twice for it, and they were both negative. I
ah,
didn't know that the testing was not accurate, right? And so I said, well, what do I do? And she says, well, I can give you my doctor's name and number. And I called them, and it was $5,000 to see the doctor to submit blood work to IGeneX. That didn't include, I think, the $1,700 IGeneX costed me to test. And I was at the end of my ropes. Now I'm at 7 years. I've spent at this point $700,000 out of pocket, and I don't even have a diagnosis. And the reason it cost me so much was because my insurance, which was amazing, denied everything because nothing was wrong with me.
yeah.
And they said that we don't cover investigational work. Well, I'm investigating what's wrong with me. Like it's not, and I reached out to an attorney. Anyways, it didn't get me anywhere. And so I called. Now, mind you, this was back in 2015, so I'm not sure how they do it now. But like you mentioned before, Anne, IGeneX is an amazing lab, right? It's one of the more accurate ones out there that I really trust. I called them up and they said, oh gosh, no, you give us your credit card, we'll charge you and send you the kit. You draw your blood and mail it in. And I thought, okay, I can do that. So went to the hospital, they drew my blood, sent it in. Sure enough, I had Lyme disease. And so that took me 7 years to get to that point. And of course, I think I only had 4 or 5 bands, which meant I was not CDC positive. So all these numbers, that you rattled off up there, right? We got to give it a wide spread because my case wasn't even reported in that
Yeah.
because I wasn't CDC positive. And again, just another thing that's wrong with this part of the system.
Yes.
So anyways, at this point, I was like, what do I do? I have Lyme disease. What am I going to do? So I did a traditional consultation with a Lyme literate doctor, Raphael Stricker in San Francisco, California. I mentioned his name because I think he's a brilliant doctor. I really liked him, but his first main choice of treatment is antibiotics. And, it was only a few hours from my house. Insurance would have covered some of it. Like everything told me this is where I need to go. This will be an
Right.
easy journey. And then I did a consultation in Reno, Nevada, which meant I would have to pick up and temporarily move to Nevada. It was $20,000 to start your treatment, just all the things against it, right? And it was what I call, and it's probably not the right term, right? Because it's not witchcraft, but like voodoo stuff, just very off the wall stuff. And when I went in for the consult, I'm like, what is this person doing or talking about? What is muscle testing? Like, oh my gosh, you're kind of weird. Anyways, so I ended up going that route. And the reason I chose the harder of the two routes was because I truly felt that if I didn't become my own advocate, I would have died.
Yes.
And I blamed that on traditional Western medicine. Um, I don't want to fault all the doctors in the Western medicine field, right? We only know what we have in our toolbox.
Yes.
Um, when these doctors go to get their doctorate license, I think there's a chapter on nutrition, right? We all
Yes.
know how important nutrition is. So they just don't have the tools in their toolbox, and or they're afraid to lose their license, right? I get that. We work hard. We don't want to treat you because all these years of schooling, I could lose it for one person. Right or wrong, I kind of get it. What I don't get and what I don't accept is the doctors that gaslight us.
Yes.
It's in your head. There's nothing wrong with you. That is no okay. There is no excuse for that. And I know we've all been there, and it's horrible.
Yes.
And so I just truly decided I would do anything other than traditional medicine because I lost faith in them. And that was 2015. We're in 2024. I haven't looked back. I have a naturopath. I do all holistic everything. It's amazing. But so a couple of the things that were big needle turners for me in my journey was I did hyperthermia.
Okay.
So I raised my body temperature.
Yeah.
And this again is at the clinic, right? And so I've got doctor supervision. It's not something I did at home. I was in the treatment center. I did hyperthermia. And so they would raise my body temperature 105, 106, 107. And you literally would shake in convulsions for a couple of 3 hours. And then you would take some medications, take a bath, get your fever down, eat some dinner, go to bed, and do it all over again tomorrow.
Mm.
It was brutal. I remember when they did my first treatment, I actually started hyperventilating because anytime you ever stubbed your toe as you were a kid, that pain came out when your body temperature was risen like that. So it was excruciating pain from head to toe. And I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating. They had to put me on oxygen. It just was, and this is my first treatment session of this. I'm like, how am I going to do this? 30, 40, 50 more times. I can't do this, and thank goodness that my mom came down from Oregon and was my caregiver because I couldn't have done it alone. And it was her push that said, you can do this, you can do this. So hyperthermia was huge for me. I did a lot of ozone. I did ozone saunas. I did blood ozone. I did rectal ozones. I even did ear ozones because one of my issues was dizziness, and it was the ear ozone that actually cleared that for me. I did a lot of colonics. And again, right, like you want me to go and lay on this bed and, stick this tube up to my rectum and let water flow. I'm like, who does this stuff? Why is this even an invention? I didn't know. Like my eyes have just been so wide open through this process. And truly been a blessing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I did colonics 3 days a week for at least a couple of years. It was a huge part of my journey. I did lymphatic treatments. I did a lot of IVs, vitamin C, magnesium, hydrogen peroxide, lots of detoxing, so many things. And I think a lot of them played, the role in healing and eventually getting to me where I am. And you talked earlier to Anne about how traumas and stuff can be kind of our detriment, right? Like we get bit. I believe there's hundreds of thousands of people walking around with Lyme disease. They just don't have symptoms.
Yeah.
Like I was for 4 years, right? Because I was healthy and then I just ran my body into the ground or something happened, some type of trauma, and it comes out. And I think that going through the trauma is keeping your stress down, and that's hard, right? We live in a stressful world, whether you're sick or not. But I know that I was 3 years into my treatment and I finally thought, okay, I'm going to get my life back. Things are going to be great. And then the home that I purchased after losing my home from Lyme, I went through the whole disability process. It took me 3 years, but I got disability and I bought another home as my starting over home because I thought I'm going to get my life back. And the town I lived in burned to the ground.
Oh dear.
And so I left my house with my dog. I was in my pajamas and I had my purse, and we drove through the fire for 5 hours and called my family, said my goodbyes. There was no way I was making it out. Obviously, it wasn't my time, thank goodness. And made it out through the fire. And I ended up in Boise, Idaho 20 days later because there was nowhere to live. I lost my home, I lost everything. And that trauma of the fire re-triggered my Lyme. So I
Mm.
did 3 years of treatment and I did a whole lot of steps backwards. And um, that is why I know for sure that that type of trauma can trigger our immune response to things. And so by no means was I where I was from the get-go, not at all. But it was ramp up that treatment again, kind of go gung ho again. And so ended up moving to Boise, Idaho, and I quickly discovered I never want to leave. It's amazing here.
Great.
Um, Found another naturopath doctor and kind of a lot of the same stuff. Wasn't as brutal as my treatment was in Nevada. I think because I got over that huge hurdle, right? And so I was back to doing colonics, ozone, lots of ozone. Um, Two of my favorite things I got turned on during my journey is colloidal silver
Okay.
and something called cistus tea. It's an amazing biofilm buster. It's
Okay.
amazing and cancer killing properties. It's an antimicrobial. I drink a cup every night and I will forever because I think it will keep me healthy and COVID free and cancer free, all the stuff. We just use the tools that we have in our toolbox. And colloidal silver is one of my other favorite things. So much so that after COVID and the price went up, I started making it my own on my own at home. And so, I mean, I use it for everything. It just is, it's almost one of those staples you should have in your home, like we did back when we were younger, and it was that red mercurochrome stuff, right? Is that what it was called? You get a cut and they put that red mercurochrome. It was like this red dye. And it was, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh. Mm-mm.
Oh my goodness. It was something that everybody used. You get a cut or anything that happens, it had like this little dauber and you just daubed it on the owie and it turned it all red and then you just thought you were all better. I'm pretty sure it was called mercurochrome. It's just one of those fun memories I had. But that's how I look at colloidal silver nowadays. I just think it's incredible. So did 3 more years of treatment. So I did, 7 years undiagnosed, 6 years of treatment. Some years were much rougher than others. And I finally reached remission.
Good job.
And all of this was done through muscle testing. I never did another blood test to figure out if it was still in me or not, right? We muscle tested everything and I was good, but I had a lot of symptoms. Um, Chronic pain being one of them. So I was still on narcotics. I still got regular injections in my back. I um, had a lot of brain fog, gut issues, fatigue, but a different kind of fatigue. So not like we have when we have Lyme. My fatigue was if I got up and showered every day and went shopping or went out with friends or did something, about every 3 days, I would have to have a pajama day down on the couch, right? Just to rest and recoup. And I thought, Tanya, you know what? This life isn't so bad, right? There was a time when you just prayed to God that you could just get out of bed, right? And so I'm up, I'm functioning, I'm in a lot of pain, it's debilitating, but I know my name, I can drive, this is going to be okay. And then a few months later, my doctor turned me on to a form of light technology that actually activates your own stem cells.
Okay.
And that was my final piece to the puzzle.
Okay.
So I started that technology and I 100% have my life back. I have zero symptoms. I have more energy than I know what to do with. The only negative I can say is I have so much energy, I can't even take a nap. And I kind of like those naps
I was
because
like,
I
that's all.
started taking a lot of them when I was sick, right? So that's not a bad thing to have. It's incredible. If there's, anybody out there that's listening, we just, have platforms that just share information. If you want more information, you can reach out to me. I have a Facebook page called Lyme and Light Therapy if you want to learn more about that. So there's just many pieces of my journey that helped me. And what you said a lot of great things at the beginning of the show. And it just sometimes when we're in the midst of this, right, we lose sight of so many things. For one, of who we are, right? It's almost, I know during my journey, I felt like that movie Groundhog Day. It was just another day, right? And it was just this wheel and depersonalization. I didn't know if this person is really standing in front of me talking or if I'm having a dream. There's just so many things that go on during this journey. And it really is hard to believe somebody when they say that having Lyme was one of my biggest blessings in life.
Thanks for being a guest on the Silver Liming.
Right? It just is so many incredible things have come through this journey that I never would have learned or known. And I had an amazing childhood, right? I know a lot of people don't. I learned that along this journey too. I had an incredible childhood. I had an incredible adult life. Life was amazing. I didn't know it could be any better. And I get goosebumps when I say that because it does. I mean, it just does. Your whole perspective changes. My whole mission in life has changed. Um, One of the biggest things is the amazing people I've met on this journey, and you being one of them, Anne, right?
Thank you.
Like the friendships we build over this they're just incredible. And then when you're going through this journey, you learn who your true friends are,
Yes.
right? How many of us, I guarantee many listeners out there are like, yeah, I have no friends anymore. They kind of abandoned me, right? Because I'm not that fun person anymore. I'm always complaining. Something's always wrong. I'm undependable because I don't know when I can do something from day to day, maybe hour to hour. That is part of the journey. But the community that's out there online and everywhere, it's pretty fascinating. Like we should be really proud of this, Anne, because there's just so many amazing people, and the people in this Lyme community, even the ones that are struggling, and don't have that perfect attitude, right? I get it. They're just incredible humans, and they wouldn't have crossed our paths had we not gone through this journey. And it's hard to know if me at my sickest, somebody said, change your mindset, embrace it, and think of it as a blessing, I probably would have gave him the middle finger. Like, who are you? You're crazy. Just leave, right? I get it. I get it. But I promise you, everybody I've talked to that has come on the other side of this journey has nothing but good things to say and just blessings and how it changed our life. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Now if God would have allowed my pain a little bit less, like I'd have been okay with that too, right? Like you didn't have to make it that difficult. And that's another journey that, and I don't want to go to the religion thing, right? Everybody has their own spiritual beliefs and there's no right or wrong. I'm very much a Christian. I very much believed and trusted in God. During my journey, I definitely had a love-hate relationship with him. I
Yes.
was angry.
Yes.
I was angry. And I think that's just part of the process. And so when I mentioned earlier, we got to start at the foundation of our body, right? Peel those layers, kill everything off. The other part of it, which you mentioned earlier, Anne, the emotional aspect of it, the blocked traumas we could have from childhood. Well, my childhood was great. Well, you know what? Maybe your mother had a hard time birthing you and had to use forceps. That could have caused some type of blocked trauma in your body. So
Yes.
don't think of it, I was never abused. I was never, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about blocked trauma. Clearing blocked trauma, changing your mindset, and working through those emotional issues, I guarantee you you either have to do them during your journey or after your journey.
Yes.
It's the only way you'll fully heal. And I recommend doing it during, right?
Yes.
Like that's one of the things I learned after the fact. There's only a few regrets I have. And that was one of them. I wish I would have quit working sooner. I wish I would have became my own advocate sooner. And I wished I would have totally had a different mindset through this journey and realized there's a reason I'm going through this, right? And when I figure it out, it's going to be amazing. And so I guess that's not too bad for having just a few regrets, right?
Yeah.
But this journey, it changed my path in life. And so, the last 7, 8 years, I ran a nonprofit when I was back in California called the Lyme Center. Had a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline I ran. I started a Facebook mentoring group. I meet with Congress every year to rally up and get more federal funding for better testing, better treatments, more recognition. And then, like you, Anne, I've had a weekly podcast the last 4.5 years, and it's just truly all about wanting to give back to you guys, to the listeners out there who are struggling, because we know what it's like, right? We know
Yes.
what it's like. We know what you're going through. Um, and we just want to share tips and just most of all, validate what you're going through, validate how you feel and your feelings, and give you hope and inspiration. Because if we can do it, you can do it, because there's tons of us out there that have done it. So it's incredible. And I love my Lyme community. I just
Yes.
can't say it enough. It truly fills my soul with joy.
Yes. And I'm there with you. I echo that sentiment a lot. And I often think, like, would you have traded this if you could now? Is this something that you would have said, no, no, never mind, I wish I could have bypassed this altogether? Or would you, knowing where you came out now, would you still accept that journey that was so hard to walk?
I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. Like I said, my life was pretty great before, and I thought things were amazing, and I felt grateful for many things. But it's just a whole new perspective you get going through this journey. And it taught me just life lessons, right? Not anything to do with being sick, just life lessons and having different perspectives and being more open minded, right? Being more open minded to things. I mean, seriously, the list goes on about just the amazingness that came out of it. And this was not the path I ever thought I'd go down, right? And I was meant to do it, you were meant to do it, and um embrace it. And it's just amazing on the other side. So just don't give up. Don't give up.
That's right. That's right. And it, I often think of that, and that's why I've called my show The Silver Liming, right? Like, not everything about it is bad. There are some very beautiful aspects that come out of it. And in fact, if I remove myself as the person in the story and I look at the transformation and the journey that I've been on, it's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. And like, I'm grateful for that perspective. I'm grateful to be able to see it that way now. I sure didn't see it like it then. And like you, I was really pissed at God. I couldn't even go to church. I would sit there and just curse. And that's not the idea of going to church, right? Like, I'd be crying, sobbing. My mom would get me to go for Mother's Day or something. And, I can't even make eye contact with her because I'm like crying my face off in church. They didn't understand what was going on. People just didn't understand. And that has also changed tremendously my relationship with God. And when I think about how I did this, and maybe you have the same thought, but like, how did I do that? How did I get through this? How did I survive? And I've mentioned this on past shows, but they have the image of two sets of footprints going down the beach, right? And then one disappears, and people are like, "See, God, you abandoned me." And it's like, actually, no. God's like, that was
I
me
picked you up,
carrying you,
carrying
and
you.
that was
Yeah.
me taking you through this. And I feel that so much, and I'm so grateful again for that perspective shift and change and the better, healthier relationship that I have there. But it takes a lot of that introspection. It takes a lot of that deep soul searching and listening to the body as well. Like our bodies yell at us a lot and say, no, this isn't good. No, you're not healthy. No, this doesn't feel right. And you actually like, you have to like sit and hear that, and really get comfortable with the messages that the body is giving to you. But it is possible to get through this, and it is possible to actually, again, come out like Tanya and I have and say,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm grateful for this experience because it has changed me as a human for a much better person than I was previously. I was a good person before, but I'm an even better person now. And one of my past guests had talked about, why don't we go in with the thought that we're going to come out even better than when we went into it, right? Like, I'm not just going to be 90% or 100, I'm going to be 120% of what I used to be. And it's like,
Yes.
yes, that's
Yes.
such a good thing to think about, is like, we can come out even better than when we went in. And while we might feel like we missed out on some things, we don't have children, we don't have this, we don't have, like I could sit here and be, oh, well, it was me over that. But God protected me from things that I shouldn't probably be doing anyways. And I have faith in that. And like everything that happens to us is for a reason. And if we can just remember that, even though it's hard in the height of being sick, like, why is this happening to me? You'll think that, but like you won't necessarily probably have the answer, because it's transforming my soul to a greater being. Like that was not what was going through my head at that time. It was more like, screw you, God, why are you doing this to me? Why don't you go pick on somebody else? Leave me alone, kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but we come out and we get better life purpose. And a lot of my guests have said that, like, one of the best gifts that they've gotten through this is just a completely different life purpose and the ability to really be where we are meant to be, and to shine bright and to help others and to guide others and to be the leaders that we're meant to be in this space, in this capacity. And he does pick us for a reason. We are chosen to do this work because there's certain people who are just more natured to be this way. And we had to go through that experience to learn our true self and to really understand who we are as a being. And now we can capitalize on that and understand our gift set much better to give back to others. And I applaud you, because it's not an easy path to walk. It is one of the loneliest, darkest journeys ever. Um, but it's doable, and you can do it and you can get through it. And you and I are very good living proof of that. And I've had plenty of guests, you've had plenty of guests on your show, letting people know, like, yes, it is possible to get better. So please don't ever give up, whomever is listening. Even if you don't even know if you have Lyme disease and you just have all these random whack symptoms and you want to go away, don't do it, because you can get to the bottom of it. There is always a root cause for what is happening in the body. We don't just accumulate an autoimmune disorder. There is a root cause. There is a reason for this. And so you just need to get yourself to the right medical professional who understands this. Maybe it's not a traditional Western medicine people. I'm related to a ton of Western medicine people. And sometimes I didn't even tell them because I was embarrassed, because a different Western medicine doctor told me there's nothing wrong with me. So why am I going to go complain to my uncle or whomever that I've got this problem, because I'm ashamed and I'm afraid? Don't get to that space either. Like, no, if you feel inside of you that there is really something wrong, you're probably very right. You know your body the best. You live inside your body every day, and continue to push, be your own best advocate. You've mentioned that many times, of becoming your own advocate. That is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in this experience, is to be my own best advocate, to voice what I need, to ask for what I need, and to do something about it. And it can be
Yeah.
really hard to manifest that energy to do something when you don't feel well, but one foot after the next. Every little effort that you put into it comes out in the end in a greater effect. And it might feel like you're not going anywhere at the moment, but just keep churning the butter, because it's eventually going to turn. You're going to be able to get there. And just again, hearing stories like yours really just help to solidify that thought that yes, you really will get better. You just have to hang in there for a little bit longer, and things are going to change, things are going to turn. You don't know what that last piece of information is that you need. Maybe Tanya's story on what she's done to fix her body, like the hypothermia and the ozone and all those different things. Like, maybe you've not heard of that before. maybe that's going to be what you need. And so just keep asking questions, keep being astute, keep listening, and again, being your own best advocate. And don't ever give up on yourself. Don't ever give up on yourself, no matter who tells you that you're crazy or there's nothing wrong with you or it's just stress. You just walk away. Save your energy for your own battle that you've got to
Yep.
fight. Don't fight the battle with them and just keep moving. And there are a lot of people in our community, which I'm so thankful for coming into contact with, such as yourself, because it's just reassurance to know that we're not alone. There are other people out there who will understand you, who will have a soft heart towards you, who will provide a safe place for you to express yourself and to just be. Sometimes that's all we need when we're sick is just someone to sit there and let us just to be, right? We're human beings, we're not human doings, and sometimes we really do just need to be and not do. And you can find your way out of this. So if you want to reach out to Tanya and get some more information or check out her podcast, again, Lyme Beyond with Tanya, that's out there for you. And I would encourage you to check it out and to reach out, because that's really how I began to change as well, was hearing stories just like this, stories of people getting better. And it would give me something to go with and a different direction to possibly go down to figure out ultimately what was causing my dysfunction. And I applaud you, because this is not easy. And to then turn it into something so beautiful and beneficial for others is just a fantastic thing to witness. And I'm grateful for you for your efforts that way. Thank you.
Thank you. And absolutely right back at you, because you were meant to do this. You were meant to go down that journey. It's almost like a hospice nurse, right? Not
Yes,
everyone can do that job. Like, it's
that's
tough. And my
right.
mom is one, and I know it's hard. And we're meant to do what we're meant to do. And I get so much more pleasure and a filled soul from doing this than I ever did working and making a dollar for someone else, right? Like, and who would have thought? I mean, just who would have thought? And if I can just say one little last piece
Of
is,
course.
um for those that are listening that are struggling, I encourage you, to change your mindset. We are our thoughts. We are what we speak. Kind of like when we were growing up and your mom says, you are what you eat. If you keep eating chicken nuggets, you're going to turn into a chicken nugget. Mindset is huge. And if you can just post an affirmation on your bathroom mirror every day that says, today is going to be a good day, or I'm healing, and I don't look at, well, I learned this after my journey, right? I always thought I was just having a bad day. Today's a bad day. No, it's not a bad day. You're having exasperated symptoms today because your body's doing some extra healing.
Mhm.
All your
Love that.
thoughts, turn them into a positive thought. I promise you it will change your world. And I also promise you it will speed up your healing. That I can assure you. Yep.
Amen.
Yep. That's
Amen.
it.
That's a very good thing to end with. And just you're not sick, you're healing. I like when
Yep.
you say I'm healing. You're not sick,
Yep.
you're healing, you're getting better, and just constantly going with that mind thought of getting better and knowing that the end is coming. The light is at the end of the tunnel. Just keep focusing on it. It gets brighter and brighter every day. The more that
Yep.
we can put our energy towards that. And I often think about when you say that Joe Dispenza, I don't know if you're familiar with Joe
Oh,
Dispenza,
yeah.
but he has a saying, thoughts matter because they become matter, right? And so
Absolutely. Yes. Love that.
this is one of the biggest battles that we can use that mantra with. Thoughts matter because they become matter. And so guard your thoughts. Do your best to have that internal dialogue with yourself. Catch yourself when you're saying, I'm sick, I'm feeling like poop. No, no, no. Just having one of those days. I am
Yeah.
healing and I love it. And so, again, your energy is perfect suited for this. And I'm just very grateful to meet you, because I felt even from the beginning, it's like we're like two peas in a pod. We're very similar. We're cut from the same cloth. And it's just always nice to have somebody to banter back and forth with, if you will, about these ideas and these thoughts, because many times I thought I'm the only person on the earth that thinks these thoughts. And then I talk to someone like you and it's like, she has the same exact thoughts. We didn't even know each other, right? But like we're
Yeah.
both arriving at the same place around the same time. And It's just beautiful what you've turned this into. So if you're looking for Tanya, you can find her on social media. That's how, again, I was introduced through a mutual connection. And but I see you there and I watch you there, and you do have your podcast, but I know that you're open to people reaching out to you. You have your website listed through your Facebook profile if people are interested to see a little bit more about the LifeWave technology and possibly how that works for them. And again, I just really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you for everything you do. You were, again, one of my many blessings out of this because I wouldn't have met you otherwise, and appreciate you and what you do.
Yeah, thanks.